Hey everybody, this is Ashish and welcome to Art Podcast. Today I have gone through the comments of this channel for 2 hours and then I went through the inboxes in my emails and DMs and Facebook for another 2 hours just to find out exactly what topics you guys want me to talk about. And that's a complicated process, but I'm happy to be put in a position where you think that I can actually guide you in some sense. And as you know, Art Podcast and Momentum Podcast are 100% unscripted, but we do have a topic that we talk about. And the unscripted nature of just a conversation type discussion over here is aimed to give you a very unfiltered opinion based on my experiences. So most of the time what I try to do is just tell you what I did and just tell you what worked for me and what did not work for me. Moreover, upon a lot of requests, we have brought back talks where I basically explain my past experiences over here. And in this one, I'm going to talk about my initial days in Bombay Atomic Research Center as a young trainee scientific officer, dabbling in between the confusion of whether to focus on my career in nuclear science and engineering or pursue my passion in space science and engineering and prepare for ISRO examination for the second time. We have done this newer version of talks before in the last episode, and I had a lot of fun, and I guess you had a lot of fun too, and so we are back with it. This is again, the newer version is fun because when I was doing it 3 years ago, I did not have a book, I did not have a reader base of thousands of people who want to know more, and so it is interesting. So let's begin. Now, I'm not going to directly get into thoughts. I'm going to first get started with what is the problem with settling with your first job. And it's seriously a problem, especially what I've seen in India, how people perceive their jobs. In India, job is the final accomplishment, kind of like the point where you get a job is the point where you're successful. And I'm not even talking about entrepreneurship or business or like those millionaire talks right now. I'm just talking about what is wrong with taking your first job as your last job or final destination, and what is wrong with that mindset. Now I can talk about this because, like I said, I dabbled with this problem when I was in my first job, and everybody else at the age of 22 or 23 were already planning their retirement plans in this job of what post they are going to be retiring at and what is going to be their pension 35 years later. All the seniors and senior officers over there were also always talking in the direction that, oh, this is a 35-year long career in this company, in this job. So for me, it was extremely weird. And I think most likely it was strange to me because I grew up in a place which was a colony where everyone over there spent their entire life in the same company. And I saw this all around me, and I had no clue why you would do that because none of them really were very satisfied with what they were having, pursuing the same career for 25 years, settling down with the first or the second job in most cases. All of them started their career in the 80s. I'm talking about the last generation which I saw. And their highest ambition was to get their kids into IITs, and so that they can have a job and then they can lead a similar career, just better. So I was confused because all they were looking at was retiring at 60, and what after that? I was confused. What are you planning about that? Some of them bought land, some of them made houses, some of them had a retirement plan to have a small trip once they were 60. And I was like, wow, is that what's going to happen? Like, I'm 22 right now, and 35 years later I wake up and I'm retired, and that's that. It was very obvious to me that that is not the way to go, and this is what I saw like all the way growing up. I was 8 years old till the point I was 16 when I got through the 10th board. Then I was 18 when I got through the 12th board, and I left for engineering. And 6 damn hard years later, I would find myself in a government job where everybody else has the same goddamn idea. The next generation has the exact same idea as the last generation, my parents' generation. I'm like, if this does not change with generation, maybe it's just the way we think. But I never accepted that. And that is what I was talking about. Your first job should not be your last job. No way. And this is coming from a guy whose first job was scientific officer, gazetted officer, a position. It's kind of the best you can get in most cases when you're 22 or 23. And no other job, at least in the engineering or core engineering, mechanical engineering field, is going to pay as much, or no other job is going to be so spread out throughout the country. Like, you look at Department of Atomic Energy, there are power plants all across the country, NPCIL power plants. And then they have research center in Mumbai, they have research center in Kalpakkam, they have research center in Indore. They have a department, an office in Mysore. They have an ERB in Delhi. They have Chennai. They have it all across the country. That this scale, and this definitely happens when a company or an organization has been out there for 6 decades or more, and that is Department of Atomic Energy, started in the mid-50s. A little bit before Indian Space Research Organization, and government funded at some point, and then expands all across the country. And also a very essential arm to the progress and the defense of the country. So that is why that organization's scale is unmatchable. And if at that point, at the age of 23, I can think that this is not my last job, maybe you should consider that too. You should consider that if you got into a job in IT or as like your first job in core, you're getting paid 35,000, 40,000, maybe less, maybe 20,000, 30,000. You should think about it, like how you can move. And the biggest problem when you are in your early 20s, just graduated, is in the mindset. It takes a lot of time for young people to understand that everybody around you is just as confused as you are. Like, they don't have an answer. Well, it is confusing or difficult for you to understand that is because everybody pretends that they know, especially the seniors. They pretend that they have it all figured out, but at the same time they'll be talking to their senior all confused that they don't know the answer, and their seniors are going to pretend that they have it all figured out. And you can go all the way up to people in their 40s and they're confused too. They don't know how it works, but for some reason none of them actually know how to say I don't know. And that is a very essential skill. Just learn how to say I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out. But instead of that, everybody pretends that I know, this is what I did, this is what worked for me. Yeah, but out of sample size of what? Sample size of 1, it worked for 1, and then you think that it is going to work for any other random one who is talking to you right now. So what young working professionals, graduates or undergraduates struggle to realize is that they have to find their answers themselves. And the reason why they have this mindset where someone else has the answer is because so far you were always in a very closed cage, a very insulated and protected cage, where your parents, your relatives, your family members were saying that this is how you should be doing, and you are used to getting answers from the outside. But being an adult basically means that you solve problems and you find answers yourself. And that is what you essentially are. If you are undergraduate, you're graduate, you are a young working professional, that's basically what you are. You are an adult and you are expected to find answers. And basically anybody who can find answers and get to solutions, those are the ones who have a career. So the sooner you understand that, the better it is. And I'm saying these things, this is because when you get into your first job, and then there's so many people who are telling you how to progress in this job itself, and that has to be taken with a grain of salt, because look at the person from whom that advice is coming. And if that person who is giving you that advice is still there around you 1 or 2 years later, that's how you know that that person's advice was wrong, because that person is still in the same place. A very important part of the career, at least in the early stages, is that you have to move very quickly. Like I would say 1 to 2 years in a job and move away. It's very important for you to understand that, because if you are sticking with the same job for 5 to 6 years straight up, and that is something that happens to be your first job, then you are going to be locked in that domain very soon. Let us say you are in production, you're a mechanical engineer and you're working in manufacturing. All right, your first job is in chip manufacturing company, and you worked over there. You learned a lot. Any field you spend your time in, you are going to learn on a daily basis. You learned a lot for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. 6 years later, that's all you know, because your 4 years of engineering was 6 years ago. That was a more holistic education which can open avenues all the other places. But 6 years later, all you do is manufacturing. You've forgotten all your basics. Nobody is looking for a 6-year manufacturing who wants to do designing right now. It is going to be an upward hill for you, and you do not have that much variation in your experiences. So I would say that in your early career, you should always be thinking that I can do more. Like I said, even in Department of Atomic Energy, the topmost job profile you can get at the entry level, it was level 10 pay metrics. My base pay was 56,000 plus DA plus DA plus HRA. It depends on the cities. In Mumbai, that pay gets as high as 80,000 at that time, and now it goes as high as like 90,000 or so once you actually complete your training program. And I knew all these, but I was like, all right, if that is the starting point, how much higher I can think of? And I was like, what is the job profile that I like more, and what is the exact nature of work that I would enjoy more? The truth was that the level of pay and the position and the rank and all, I'd kind of cracked the highest level at the age of 23. It came after 1 year of unemployment after I graduated. So I'm not saying that I was a young star. I was a young unemployed rookie who had no worth in the society. And that's how I lived for 1 year in Delhi PGs. But once I cracked those examinations and got into those organizations, I was fairly young in a very high position. But so high that you literally can't go higher. That is engineering services entry level 2. That is UPSC civil services entry level 2. You can't really go any higher than that when it comes to government jobs. And then again, I did mechanical engineering. And the situation of India is that government jobs are a little bit ahead of the private jobs when it comes to entry level jobs in core engineering. You can get into an automotive company with an undergraduation, and at that time the pay was somewhere around 35,000 to 55,000. You see, that was still lesser than what we were paid. Now the growth in government jobs were slower, and people in private jobs, they made their growth and the promotions much faster. That is true. And so I understood that this is the starting point. It's a good starting point, but if I stay over here for 5 years, my growth speed is not as much, and so I need to be moving. And so I did not settle with the first job, and I said that I'm going to keep on continuing preparing to get into Indian Space Research Organization, and that was the whole idea. And even though like 4 years ago I made a whole long video on why I left my job at ISRO, but the explanation was much simpler when I look back. And this is a question that came into recent set, which is not recent anymore, it's almost a year ago, but the latest India tour that I did on on the book tour of this, The Boy Who Did Not Sign, a question popped up. I think it was Bangalore seminar. The question was why I left ISRO again. And at that point, 3 years after I had left that job, it was fairly clear it was a career decision. It was a career move. I'm going to keep on moving. And so even at that point, I decided to keep on moving, explore other careers as well, and explore also my value as an engineer in other places. So I think it is very important for you to be dynamic in the early 20s. And I need to say these things because everyone around you is going to be saying the exact opposite. No matter what generation, no matter even if you listen to this like 30 years later, the surrounding is going to be talking in a very similar manner. The surrounding always talks about safety. And me risking my job profile at Bhabha Atomic Research Center, then leaving a very sound, solid position in Indian Space Research Organization as a scientist, then struggling to get to America, and then publishing this book, and then like dabbling here and there, leaving a lot of stuff, risking a lot of stuff, a lot of things I have not even talked about, but I've taken some solid risks. But at no point did I ever feel that I'm not going to have an income, or my career is done, or oh shit, that was a bad decision, or I never had a regret that I should have never done this, or I should have never left that job, I should have never risked Department of it. Like even when I got into ISRO, the first thing scientists at ISRO in my batch said is that why did you leave Department of Atomic Energy? It's such a good job. Like coming from a person who has never worked over there, right? And these kind of things, when it comes from people who have no experience in the domain that they're talking about, that is a problem. And that is why I have talked in such detail about know what is the source of information. Like I don't know what it is, but by default humans do accept a third person's voice with high amount of confidence, as if they know that that is true. I have no idea what brought that mindset. And I think that is also the reason why like people take YouTubers very seriously. Before this, people used to take celebrities very seriously. A single interview of a famous Bollywood celebrity and whatever he or she says becomes their life lessons and they live by it. I don't know what it is. It's especially when it is coming from another person. You kind of think that that is the truth, and you have to break that mindset, because a lot of people live like that for years, decades even, by thinking that that is the truth. And when I ask them the question that who told you this and what was the accomplishment of that guy, because I've had these questions many times, like BARC is better than ISRO, ISRO is better than BARC, government jobs are like this, or I should go for MS abroad or GATE. And people pick their entire career trajectory based on what somebody said. Oh, BARC is not good, ISRO is better, you should go for ISRO. I'm like, who told you this? And the guy who told that person like you should go for ISRO instead of BARC never even made to neither ISRO nor BARC. Nothing, no experience whatsoever. But I saw this in my Delhi seminar, same book tour. I think there's a video on that on my Hindi channel too. It's just, there was a reel related to that, or short, you can say in Hindi, on my Hindi YouTube channel. For YouTube it's short, I watch Instagram reels. But yeah, just someone said something and you're just taking that as truth. So always ask that question. Who is that coming from? What is the source of that information? And because you are going to see this a lot, especially when you are having your first job. Let's say you start working and everybody around you is senior in some sense or the other, and you are going to see them pretending that they know what the answer is. Nobody does. Even if they have worked over there for a year or two, they're just getting started, they have no idea. But you thinking that someone else is having the answer is what they play upon, and then they are going to pretend that they know the answer because you have come to a agreement that you don't know the answer, and they're like, I at least know more than him or her, and they're going to mostly bullshit around and like, yeah, this is how you should be doing. Then ask the question, did that person do it himself or not? Or is it just an imagination, a fictitious idea that this should be done like this? And so I understand that it is important. Now I'll give you a very strong example right now. And if the confusion is still there, I'll give you an example and explain what I'm exactly talking about of how difficult it is to find the right person who knows exactly what he or she is talking about. So yeah, when I got into BARC, everybody around me was talking about how it is so difficult to maintain your percentage in BARC training school in this program of nuclear science and engineering, that you would never be able to get time to prepare for any other competitive examination, right? And there's so many people who told me that, and then I started asking questions like, who is this coming from? Like, I would listen to this person if this person actually tried it, like tried to balance the training program along with preparing for any other competitive examination. I don't care. But everybody who did that were not here. They were gone. So that's what you need to understand. If you need to go away from this place, then everybody who has actually done it, they're already gone. And everybody who is staying over there, they're going to be pessimistic about it because either they tried and failed, they did not try enough, or they never tried. So let me bring you a segment of the book. I have two books over here because one is brand new and the other one is my copy. My copy is the second copy of the book. The first copy of the book goes to the person who this book is dedicated to. Let me know down in the comment section if you know who that person is. Alright, so this is an extract of The Boy Who Did Not Sign, chapter 2, The World on the Other Side, right after Ordinary is the Father of Extraordinary, page number 51. So this is honest to God, a true experience that I had in my first day at BARC training school. And what we used to have is what we called orientation program. So new set of scientific officers joined, and like I said, there's a training program, 1 year training program. So this is an annual program. So the last set of trainees graduated from trainee scientific officer to scientific officer. And we entered as trainee scientific officer to do that same 1 year cycle. And this cycle had a ranking system. So your final posting in Department of Atomic Energy is going to be all across the country, but the choice that you are going to get is based on your ranking, like your relative performance. And thus it becomes a race where you compete for a better career in that organization. And thus, it was risky to not give 100% of my time towards this race and to spare any time towards anything else, let us say preparing for Indian Space Research Organization or so. But I had already given like solid 2 years towards Indian Space Research Organization. I had failed in its entrance examination, my first attempt, like 3 to 4 months earlier. My first attempt was in April 2017, and this segment is in July 2017. So long story short, I wanted to get into ISRO. I failed at ISRO written test. I took BARC written test as a backup. I succeeded in that, went for the interview, qualified the interview, got the job. But I failed in ISRO, so I wanted to give another shot. All right, giving perspective to people who are listening to me for the first time. So this was a real experience on my first day during the orientation. So there was an orientation program where like every scientific officer who was graduating from the training program got certificates, the toppers got medals, and we were like an awestruck of the toppers. Like, oh my god, this is what we all want to do. We want to be topper, we want to be holding that gold medal. And most of us were like an awestruck of the toppers, like, oh my god, this is what we want to do, and I want to become the topper, because topper gets anything that he or she wants. Posting the best postings in Department of Atomic Energy, most of them had an idea that I want to be posted in Mumbai, I want to be posted in Indore. If you perform poorly, you would be posted in places you do not want to be. For the Department of Atomic Energy, last postings generally go for Kalpakkam, until unless you are born and raised somewhere close to that, and you would be happy and fine going over there. Other places are like Manuguru. Kota is still fine, but there are some places that people do not want to go, and you know that because everybody is going to leave that posting if they can, and that is going to come down to the last ranked person in that training school ranking. So it's the least desired. there's no more proof that you want from that. So people were awestruck of the topper, and to give you a perspective, a batch would be of around 30 people, and ranking will be like that. For our batch, mechanical engineering had only 10 people, and then there are other branches like chemical engineering, physics, chemistry, electronics. There are different branches, right? All the different branches of science and engineering. For science, there are mostly 3: physics, chemistry, and biosciences. And for engineering, you can think of electronics, civil, electrical, mechanical, computer science, so like that. And then every branch will be having somewhere around 10 to 15 people, and then the relative ranking would be within those set of people in that branch. And people who became the toppers last year became heroes instantly for us, even though we just saw them for like 5 to 10 minutes when they were on stage talking about their success story and all, right? So right after the set of speeches and award ceremony and handing over the degree in nuclear science and engineering to the seniors, we broke for lunch, and all the batchmates, what I saw them doing is rush towards the seniors who were toppers. Like, you can imagine there are like 4 or 5 different branches, so there would be 4 or 5 different toppers, and everybody ran towards them for advice. And somehow people think, like, this is in their mindset, that one guy or girl talking to them for 5 minutes is going to tell them the secret or give them the secret of what they need to do. And that is the moment where I realized that, hey, whatever everyone else is doing, I better do something different. Because if everybody else is listening to the same thing and that they are going to do the same thing, then everyone else is going to reach to the same point. And that is a different set of thinking that you might start to incorporate if you want different results. It's very simple. Do what everybody else is doing, get what everybody else is going to get. Fairly simple. Let me read out a few things over here so that you understand exactly what I'm talking about, because this is a real life experience. So inspired from those experiences, I wrote a fictitious scene over here. As I walked out of the auditorium into the courtyard where the lunch was organized, I quickly found out that I was not the only one who went to college. Around 40 fucking trainees surrounded the overall topper, complimenting him on his speech, which was dog shit. That's funny. Yeah, it was really dog shit. Like, the topper can literally go to the stage and talk about anything, and everybody else would be going out there and complimenting him, congratulating him for becoming the overall topper, and asking him how they could do it themselves. I kid you not, examining their ferocity, any one of them in a heartbeat would blow the ears off of 39 others who were also listening to what the great topper was saying. If only they had guns, if only these bozos knew how to use it, if only shooting off the ears of nerds was legal. Yeah, I know, too many ifs. That's the only reason their ears survived. It's a little bit harsh on these nerds, but that was the honest frustration that I had. When you want unique reason, this is where you actually need to pay attention, because this is what I decided to follow. When you want unique results, it is important for you to take unique actions as well. If you are running in a herd, even if you win, you won't be the only one. The herd comes with the comfort of safety, but at the cost of individuality. Explore the road less traveled, because along the ones well constructed, all the hidden diamonds have already been claimed. I knew what was important to do, but also if everyone else was doing it, it was important not to do it. That, or I just didn't like the sight of me pushing against 40 others trying to listen to what one guy says. Like a beta. What if 25 years in future, my son travels back in time and sees his dad acting like a total bitch? Okay. You see, in between the two crazy, just taking my frustration on nerds, is the part what I really applied. Like if everyone else is doing it, it is important not to do it. And that's an important lesson. And that's the opposite of what most people do in their early careers. For some reason they think that everybody else has it figured out. Like people 2 years senior of them, they have it figured out. That means that you 2 years later will have it all figured out. Then you go 2 years later doing everything what everyone else did, doing everything right, and you find yourself still confused. And that's when you realize that even the grown-ups and the adults have no clue what's going on. So yeah, you have to figure out your own truth. Don't take that lazy path of waiting for others to find answers, believing that others have already found answers. They might have found answers, but they might have found answers for themselves. You have to find answers for yourself. And thus, it is very important, at least in the initial part of your career, to keep exploring new fields. I was having a telephonic consultancy with this. Oh man, it was a horrendous story. I really felt bad about listening to that, because I had back-to-back 2 calls where I talked to one NEET aspirant who had taken 4 years drop. And then right after that, I talked to one civil services aspirant who has also taken 4-year drops. And I'm like, what are you really doing with your careers? And clearly, they have not been following my content for long. They just found my channel because I'm all against taking drops. Even though I have taken 1-year drop back in 2016 because I had no other options. And back then taking drops did make sense, because you had to be in a particular coaching institute physically to be preparing for a competitive examination in the best way possible. Not true anymore. But the point is that I was talking to that NEET aspirant and she was like, I want to become a gynecologist. I'm like, fine. Is that your passion? She's like, yeah, that is what I want to do. So what are you getting from your NEET performance so far? She's like, I'm getting a veterinarian, something like that. I'm like, okay, so 4 years, you're not getting gynecology, you're getting veterinary. Have you ever tried to study that field of science as well? Because you just might find that to be interesting too. I was so dead accurate about mechanical engineering, and I was so focused that I want to get into space science and engineering that I did overlook into a lot of careers. And over time I found out that, hey, I like automobile engineering too. I like freaking not rocket science, but other forms of aerospace engineering too. So a lot of times you don't even know what you like because you are not experimenting. You are asking others. I'm passionate about writing, I'm passionate about mechanical engineering, and I'm passionate about talking. How do I know all those 3 things that I'm passionate about? I explored it. When I was a scientist at Indian Space Research Organization, I explored talking to you guys. I explored doing seminars all across the country. I paid for those seminars to try it out. And so I found out that I love speaking. When I became a scientist, already a stable career, I explored writing a book. And obviously, I was horrible at writing it at first, but I loved telling a story. And so I developed a skill of writing to be better as a writer, writing a book, telling a story. So, how do I know that? Because I explored it. Do you think if I told anybody that I want to, pay money to book flight tickets to Mumbai and then Chennai and then to Delhi and spend like 20,000 rupees a month out of like 60,000 that I'm earning anyways, for what? Everybody is going to tell me not to do it, right? But I explored it. So you need to understand that people around you don't have answers. They just don't know. Their guess is just as good as you in most cases, especially if you're 23 and the guy who's giving you advice is 26. It's mostly the same. You need to find a real 30-year-old guy who has done exactly what you are trying to do, and it's extremely difficult to find one. And if you find one, well, make that person your mentor. It's very difficult to find one, but you need to find someone like that. And till that point, man, don't listen to people who are just guessing at best, because what they're doing is worse than guessing. They're bullshitting. They're pretending that they know the answer, but the reality is that you're giving them the opportunity to bullshit you, because you somehow think that someone else have the answer to what you want to do. So make those career mistakes, make those moves, and take those risks. And over time, you'll find out that those were the best decisions that you took. So yeah, don't listen to many people. Make your own decisions. And let's see the part that I was actually going to talk to you about this funny character who was the only one over there. And in the most counterintuitive manner, this guy was the bottomer. And at that point, Ashwin Taksh sees that there's people surrounding the overall topper, and initially he also wanted to go and talk to the topper. Then right before this, if college taught me one thing, it's that one should make good relations with seniors. Even the dumbest senior will beat you in experience. Now that is his idea, right? And the moment he walks out and he sees 40 people surrounding the overall topper, he says that as I walked out of the auditorium into the courtyard where the lunch was organized, I quickly found out that I was not the only one who went to college because everybody else knew the same thing, surrounded the topper. And he's like, if everybody else is doing it, I'm not going to do it. And so he looks around and he just looks for experience now. Not the topper, just the person who is going to beat him in experience. And he saw the overall bottomer standing over there with a plate of food, having a chill time, eating his food. And he's like, I'm going to talk to that guy. So he walks to that guy who's the bottomer, and there's like true experience of what I did. There's like a tall, skinny guy who's like chilled out, beard's grown like even on that day, because this was the convocation day and everyone was clean shaved, shirt pressed, shoes polished, and this guy is like casually walking around with a plate of food, enjoying it. And in this like fictitious version, his name is, what's his name? He just comes over there for a page, but this character, I really enjoyed him. What's his name? Faz. All right. So here we go. Ashwin meets Faz. All the other toppers were surrounded as well, so I decided to go to the overall bottomer. I said hi and introduced myself. His name was Faz. So, can we give competitive examinations while in academy, given that it's written in our bond contract that we are not allowed to do? I asked. And he's like, plate is empty. He goes over there to fill it up. All right, he's more focused on food right now. But like down a paragraph, you're going to see what really matters. Like I'm going to even put a screenshot on the screen if you really want to read it, go through a pause and go ahead and read it. But in the middle of page 52, Faz says, everybody prepares for exams here, especially the engineers. Why wouldn't they? They have so many options, he said, and stuffed chole puri into his mouth. Chewed it. Like literally, this is the guy. He's like eating, chewing, casually looking at the trees and all. And he's like, yeah, everybody prepares for engineering examinations. Why wouldn't engineers prepare for it? They have so many options. And he's like, yeah, this is very common. People prepare for examinations no matter what the bond statement says. And then he continues. casually. Give exams without any worries, but don't you fucking inform anyone who is a part of academy, or they will be after your ass for the entire year. So this is really where he gets a suggestion. It does not take a topper to tell you that. Matter of fact, topper wouldn't be able to tell you that because topper never prepared for competitive examination because he was all focused towards academy examination. So the bottomer gives him the advice that he needs. And that is what you need to understand. A lot of times you underestimate people based on appearances, based on their accomplishments. Meanwhile, they might beat you in experience. They'll tell you that you can tell them and they'll let you prepare, but they'll do the exact opposite. They play these cunning foxy games every year. And then he goes ahead and most likely says the line of the century. It's not important if you can prepare or not. If you want, you will, and ain't nobody's daddy stopping you. But the question is, can you prepare? He said, and just walks away like a gangster to get more food. So, it does not matter if you can do it or not. The question is, can you do it? And that all depends on you and nothing else. All right. So let's see if we are having a question over here. Yes, sir. We do have a Q&A question. And this is from Pratik Spectrum. Ashish Bhaiya, I love you. Oh no. The guy loves me. That's good. The question is over here that the guy is already in government job. So already a government job, stable job, and the guy is struggling what he should be doing next, right? What you should be doing is exactly what I talked about. You should be exploring things, especially the ones others are telling you not to do, because that is going to tell you what you are interested in. Well, have you tried writing? No. Have you tried YouTube? No. Have you tried athletics? No. Have you tried martial arts? No. Have you tried a sport like football, basketball? Have you tried that? No. Have you tried long distance running? No. Have you tried triathlon? No. Have you tried mountain climbing? No. How the hell are you ever going to find out what you're interested in? Like, whatever the smallest nudge you have, like I had a small nudge to try YouTube, and I tried it. I had a small nudge that I should be writing a story on whatever I have experienced so far, and so I sat down and started writing it. So I know that you have that nudge too, like what you are interested in, what I should try. You do. Everybody does, and you should give it a shot. It might be inspired from someone else. It might be inspired from me. It might be inspired from a guy you met. It might be inspired from your parents. Whatever it is, give it a shot. You should take steps towards that, and that becomes the next step to your career. And that's what I would say, Pratik. Now, next part of the podcast is going to be related to regulating stress in this early 20s or late teens, like 18 to 24. And it did take me a long time to realize, and that's what we are going to talk about. I mildly want to touch upon this personality trait where you don't really worry about things a lot. You can really increase your lifespan or your run or your marathon, which you are going to maybe pursue for 10 years to develop an excellent career. So when you are taking that many risks and challenges and you are putting yourself against a lot of adversities, what happens is inevitably you are going to put yourself through a lot of stress. And it is designed that way. Well, to become better, you'll have to go through a lot of challenges. Challenges, hurdles, and failures do improve your capability. And so it is all designed like that. But you can also think about things differently in a way your mind is not that much strained. And in that way, you can really elongate the distance you can travel and also enjoy your journey. For example, I've talked about positivity as well. You can pursue any career goal with both mindsets, positive or negative. And no, I'm not talking about law of attraction and that secret bullshit that was written years ago, which a lot of people took it more seriously than their religious books. But And I do not think that being positive makes good things to happen to you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in general that whether you are positive about your future or negative about your future, it does not matter. But you will be either one of those. And it's not constant in all times. Sometimes you're positive and sometimes you're negative. But what I'm saying is that if you are negative, it does not give you a hope that you are going to lead a better life, and that affects your motivation. That will happen. And this especially starts happening when you reach those darkest before the dawn time. And I'm not going to refer to the book again, but there is a chapter called Rock Bottom. I mean, I'm not going to read out line by line again. And especially I can't, because that's the part which is having a lot of spoilers if I tell you right now. But yeah, in any journey, I bet you're going to reach that darkest before the dawn part where you're at the absolute rock bottom. Things have been worse than what it was before. And that's where a lot of people start questioning, I should not have taken that risk. I should not have left that job. I should not have taken that chance. And you are going to get there no matter what you do. I've been there many times in my cycle to become an ISRO scientist, in my cycle to get my first job, in my cycle to write this book, in my cycle to come to America, and the past few cycles that I've been going through. It is almost like a pattern that will happen. You will get to a point where you have never been, it's super low, and that's where I often find myself reminding myself that, dude, you have to be positive at that moment. And I think there is a line in this book, but if it isn't in this book, then I've said it multiple times in my podcast and my talks as well. When nothing works, try positivity. And that is very important for you. There will be a lot of points where nobody is with you, nobody trusts you, you do not trust yourself. And that's where you have to turn it around with your mindset. And that is one aspect that does relieve a lot of stress. And I don't want you to be in your 20s stressed out just because you are trying to make a good life. It can be done in a less stressful manner too. It's still as strenuous. You are still working 15 hours a day, but you can do it with a positive mindset too. And the second one is that just stressing out about things that you cannot control. There are a lot of things which are in your hand, and basically those are all that is in your hand, like what you can do physically, right? And someone wrote it in the comment section. It became a pretty popular comment in one of my podcasts, Art or Momentum, I don't remember, but the comment was, human mind is the most difficult thing to control. And I replied, your mind is literally the only thing you can control. You should understand that. Like, if you're trying to control anything else, that's a futile endeavor. And you, I can control my hand, I can control my leg. But yeah, your mind controls your hand and your leg, and your mind is controlled by you. Now that's a complicated topic. There's another topic like brain named itself brain because a brain named brain. so not going to get into that, but really your mind is the only thing you can control. If you're trying to control someone else's mind by manipulating him or her, that's futile. That's never going to work, at least in the long run. If you're trying to control the weather, that's not going to work. If you're trying to control the economy, the World War III timing, the nuclear apocalypse, or how the economy or the recession is going to be or when it's going to be, you can't control that. A lot of times you can't control the layoffs too. So it is very futile to control anything other than your mind. And so I'm saying that you should really only focus on the things that you can control. Like the simplest example is that a lot of times kids are like, hey, start this hashtag, postpone this examination, or start this movement of why government is not taking this examination, or make these changes. You are in the initial part of your career. A lot of you guys haven't even started your career, or you want to get somewhere. try to improve your career instead of trying to change the world. There are people in positions with responsibilities to make policies out there in that position because they have worked their way up. You want to do that? Work yourself towards that too. Do not try to control things which are not in your hand. And the sooner you learn this, the better off you are. A lot of times in relationships as well, we worry too much about our partner, or you worry too much about your parents, or you worry too much about your kids, when in reality they're all individual people. And the reality and the truth is that their problems are their problems. You can suggest them, you can stand with them, but at the end they have to solve their problems, just like you have to solve your problems. And just by understanding that you are the only person in this world, or your mind is the only thing you can really control, or your actions are the only things that you can control, the less tension or worry you put on your mind. And the sooner you understand, the less stressful your life is, and the longer you are going to last. Because if you're going to stress out about every tiny thing that you cannot control, then you are going to burn out sooner or later. And a lot of people understand these things after they burn out. Really, like they go to that point with them burned out, and they're like, oh, it was all useless from the get-go. Like, there are very few things that I can control. The world is too random, right? Okay, yeah. A lot of people put this in relationship too. They're attracted to a girl or a guy, and they're like, hey, why doesn't that person like me? Well, you can't control that. You can't control that. And that's a seamless transition to the next thing that I wanted to talk about. And I have avoided this topic for the longest time. I don't like to talk about relationships. And there are a lot of viewers or audience who have reached out to me about this and personal calls, and they have told me, asked me, like, why don't you talk about it? I'm like, I'm not accomplished. Like, I can talk about competitive examinations because I have secured an All India rank of 4. So there's an attestation over there. I can talk about career because I've made several careers for myself in a professional manner, where I've actually created revenue from all of them. So I can talk about that. I can't talk about relationship because it is different for different people. And, a successful relationship's definition would be different for different people. But in a general manner, I can talk about it in a way which everybody is going to face relationships. And it becomes like inevitable when you are talking about kids or students or young working professionals in the age group of 18 to 24. They are going to face it. Not only they are going to face it, it is going to be a giant chunk of the thought process that they are having right now, right? So it is a little bit complicated, and at this point I'm not even telling you what to do. I'm just sharing my experiences and my thought process, and I'm sitting with you like a friend and telling you what I think about it, right? So relationships, or the person you're dating, or if you're dating or not, becomes a status symbol a lot of times, right? Even like people younger than 18 can relate, because this starts as early as like 14 or maybe younger a lot of times in your school, like before your high school. It happens. Like, I've been there too. So relationships does become a status symbol, and you have to be very careful if you're chasing a relationship just for status symbol. That's a problem. Well, there's again elephant in the room if you're chasing a relationship just for your physical pleasure. And I think if you're chasing for that, I think it's all right because you're young and you want to have some experiences, and I think that it's fine. You should definitely chase that, but you should be very clear with that person too about your endeavors when it comes to physical pleasures. But if you're really attracted to a person, if someone is your crush, here are a few other realities that I've discovered, and I completely might be wrong in this, but then again, like I said, I'm a friend who's trying to share his experiences. So a lot of times relationships in this part I completely forgot what the fuck I was saying. Yeah, relationship a lot of times in your early 20s does become a career move too. Now, how is that? And I saw this happening when I was just 23 in my first job, which was a government job. And I saw a lot of girls and guys making relationship decisions based on the career plan. And you will see that over here too. I cannot again read it out because it's a spoiler again. But yeah, it does become a career move. Like, okay, looking at the relationship, I'm looking for something stable. I'm looking to get married in 2 years or 4 years, and that's dangerous. Like, a person who starts at that point is not really looking for whether that person is into you or not. So like I said, and some people misunderstand me because of that video that I made about truth about relationship. It was in Hindi, so if you do not understand Hindi, you wouldn't get me in that video. And I'm very thankful because that video did mislead a lot of people, thinking that I'm saying absolute no for relationship, even though even in that video I did say that, hey, if you find the right person, it's actually a good thing. But the point is that most of the places you won't find the right person. And when I say right person, the person who really likes you and you like that person, isolating it from everything else, from the careers and the future ambition and all that, the person who just really gets you, right? So you want to explore dating, do it. But I've talked about this before as well, that you should not chase a person, because when you start doing that, that's when you start wrecking your career. And if a person is not interested, leave it right there. If a person is interested and you are interested, go ahead and try it. If you go ahead and try it and you find out that that person is only looking for a very stable life and is very calculated and business minded in terms of relationship, well, walk away. If you are not like that, and if you are like that, stop listening to me right now. And when you want to balance this with your career, you have to understand that finding the right person for you is like finding needle in a haystack, and you will face a lot of rejections, and you should always be ready to walk away. And that is the reality. But I do fully support that you should still be searching for it. I think that's a very important part of your life, and I don't think that you should give that away. And even if you have an impression that I gave that away, I never said that. My book, from the first page itself, from the first chapter itself, you'll always see Ashwin Taksh chasing some girl or the other. In my sequel, prequel, and all the books, there will always be that, because this is the story of a guy who is like 22, 23, 24, moves towards like 25 or so, and the sequel and all is going to be an important part of his life, relationships. If you've already read my book, huge thanks to you guys. And I'm sorry that I keep on talking about how this book is available, and it must feel painful for you to listen to it many times because you have already read the book. A lot of you guys read the book on the day it was like published. You got that book and you started reading it, right? But I hope you understand that there are like thousands and thousands of others who haven't read this book yet, and it is a marvel of a book. If I say so myself, I spent 5 years, 15 drafts working on this book. This is a tremendous story. I know that. If I did not feel that way, I would not have published this book. So bear with me, that's all I'm saying. And if you have not read this book, trust me, all you have to do is go to the free sample. And a lot of people think that this book is costing 500 rupees. It's not. You can get an ebook for 180 rupees. That's as cheap as it gets. A lot of times you might eat costlier food outside, just ordering on Swiggy or Zomato. So that's again a misconception. So I'll leave the links down in the description box. Right, see you in the next one. Till then, bye.